We call this meeting of the Lafayette Parish School Board to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the presentation of the colors by Ove Como High Navy Junior ROTC. I'm a five-year-old. Dr. Aguilar, do you have any opening comments?
I do, thank you. Good evening, board members. I am pleased to announce that the Louisiana Farm Bureau and LSU Ag Center has named Michelle Levis as Agriculture in the Classroom Teacher of the Year for her school garden program. Ms. Levis is a first grade teacher at GT Linden. The gardens, which are found in many of our schools, incorporate school curriculum as an outdoor laboratory teaching anything from science, math, English, history, language arts, and physical education. Congratulations to Michelle for her work. This past Monday, the 22nd Annual Superintendent's Scholarship Golf Tournament was held at the Wetlands Golf Course. Golfers were able to dodge the afternoon showers in support of seniors with post-high school education and or training cost. The Acadian High administrative team was the school's system's winner, with the corporate sponsors of Sound and Communication, Poche Pruitt and Associates, and Bernhardt Mechanical winning first, second, and third place respectively. Through the generous donation of this year's sponsors, the tournament raised $40,000. Yes. Scholarships for our graduating LPS seniors. The scholarships help students in their first 2 years of post-high school education. All seniors have received emails encouraging them to apply for the award. The deadline for submitting the scholarship package is Friday, April 12th. And again, I want to express my sincere thanks to all of the sponsors and everybody who supported this great event. Board members, I left at your area a packet of information. I have been compiling over the past 4 years all of the events that have taken place in the district that I would call milestones. It's been a difficult task to try to get to completion. The cover document references milestones from 2015 to 2019. It's about 100 of the most noteworthy events that have happened in the Lafayette Parish school system. In the packet is the more detailed year-by-year reflection of everything that you guys have been able to accomplish, the school system as well, our teachers, our students. It's an incredible body of work that those of you that are running for re-election will likely be able to tout many of the things that have happened in the Lafayette Parish school system through your leadership. Those of you that are not choosing to run, you will be able to read these things later in life and reflect on the good work that you guys have done in your term in office. So I hope you enjoy reading back all of the things that have happened in the Lafayette Parish school system over the past 4 years. We are, board members, we are sad to discuss tonight the fact that Mr. Joe Craig has chosen to retire from the Lafayette Parish school system. Mr. Craig holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Science from Purdue University that he earned in 1983. He has a Master's of Science degree in Fishery from LSU in 1985. He had a hard time getting work, and so he ended up back In college, studying science education, he received his bachelor's degree in 1990 in science education. His educational specialist degree was earned in 1994. Mr. Craig has taught science at Paul Rowe Middle School from 1990 to 1995. He was an assistant principal for 9 years. Karen Crow Middle from the years 1995 to 1998, and assistant principal at Acadiana High School from 1998 to 2004. He was certainly fortunate enough to be also the Como High School principal for 11 years, from 2004 to 2015. As I was coming back to the district in 2015, Mr. Craig had just been awarded the opportunity to be the Director of Career and Technical Education and Schools of Choice. He held that position for 1 month, and I encouraged him to get a little bit closer to the superintendent's office. He became the Chief Administrative Officer, and just recently those positions have been upgraded to Assistant Superintendent. He is and has been an outstanding educator. He has been the glue that has literally held this parish together. He is up at 2 in the morning running or cycling. He gets to the office well before 5 o'clock. He returns phone calls. He handles email messages. He deals with text messages. He has been closely involved with many of the successes of the Lafayette Parish school system. It is sad to see him go, but also I think he's earned an opportunity to turn off the cell phone and get back to his roots, which is in agriculture science. We wish him the best of luck. I know, board members, you may have something to say to Mr. Craig, but what I'd like to do first, with Mr. Sintani's help, is present Mr. Craig with a plaque of appreciation. It says, "Presented to Richard J. Craig in appreciation for 30 years of outstanding service and dedication to the students, staff, and community of Lafayette Parish."
If anyone knows Mr. Craig, you will know that Mr. Craig really doesn't like things like this too much.
Hey, Joe.
I'm done.
Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks. I know I'm not a man of few words, but when it comes to, thanks.
Mr. Angel is going to give a brief presentation on District 2, and while he walks up there, I'll tell you a little story about Labor Day in 2015 when I had sent something to Joe on Monday afternoon, and the email said, "Joe, under no circumstances are you to do anything with this today. I am sending this to you so I don't forget to send it to you tomorrow." And then 2 hours later, I get an email back with whatever the answer was to whatever question I was asking. So that is emblematic of the way Joe Craig has worked hard for this school system. Mr. Angel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Aguilar, you mentioned 100-something accomplishments over the years here, and I'd like to point out a few that are kind of near and dear to my heart, because these are accomplishments that occurred in the district that I represent, kind of the northern part of Lafayette Parish. And I want to thank not only you, Mr. Trosclair, Mr. Craig, our teachers, and our parents. You know, the most important part of the student's life are the parents. We appreciate you. Parents who really are concerned about their children, that those children do well. Acadian Middle. Acadian Middle had 11% increase in 6th grade science scores, a 14-point increase in 6th grade math. Students showing the most gains were students identified as being economically disadvantaged, and as well as those with disabilities. A 5.1 increase in grade 7 ELA. Evangeline Elementary, 2.3 increase in third grade science index. Karen Crowe Heights Elementary, 4.0 increase in third grade ELA. 11.1 increase in third grade math. 7.5 increase in fourth grade math. 17.5 increase in third grade science. Cameron Grove Middle School, a 1.3% improvement in math proficiency. A 10.9 increase in the number of students scoring mastery and above in social studies. A 5.7 increase in sixth grade math proficiency. 4.6% increase in improvement in students scoring mastery and above in sixth grade social studies. A 2.5 increase in students scoring mastery and above in seventh grade science. A 9% increase in students scoring mastery and above in social studies. 6.2 increase in students scoring mastery and above in ELA. 19.7 increase in students scoring mastery and above in social studies. Karen Crowe High School. Karen Crowe High School demonstrated the following EOC end of course index increases. English 3, 8.1. Algebra 1, 2.7. Geometry, 14.4. And the last thing I want to mention, which is probably one of the very important, if not the most important factors in students seeking employment, and that is high school graduation. I realize post-high school studies are important, post-high school education is important, trade school is important, college is important. But I think one of the first things that we must do is to graduate from high school. In 2014, Karen Crowe's graduation rate was 59.6%. 59% of our students graduated. In 2015, 62% of our students graduated. In 2016, 69.9% of our students graduated. And in 2017, 71.5% of our students graduated. I think those are horrendous numbers. I know everyone is responsible that's part of our system. But Doc, you were the superintendent, and I congratulate you, and I wish you very well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angel. Board members, I would invite you towards the end of the meeting to say your thoughts about Mr. Craig and thank him for his service. But we have an important item to get to because we have a board member who is under a timeline to depart from this meeting. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go straight to item 4.4 and handle the interim superintendent interview item, and then go back and do our support workers of the year presentation. So the current item is interim superintendent interviews. In front of you, you have, I'll just kind of describe how we'll handle this. In front of you, you should have 2 sheets of paper with 5 names on them. That means 4 individuals have been eliminated from consideration. Superintendent Piu from Vermilion Parish formally withdrew his name yesterday. Mr. DeShera, Mr. Fowler, and what's the other one that's missing on here? Mr. Carrier from Spring, Texas. Thank you, Mr. Angel. They were unable to present proof of eligibility to be certified as superintendent of schools in the state of Louisiana. So the first thing we are going to do, I would entertain a motion for to specify the number of candidates we would like to interview. I would entertain a motion from someone to specify the number of candidates we would like to interview.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and limit the number to 2.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Lachele, seconded by Mr. Hidalgo, that the board interview 2 candidates. Do we have any public comment on this item? Do we have any board member comment on this item? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
Motion passes. Next item will be to select a meeting date where we will interview 2 candidates. I'll entertain a motion for either the 23rd, the 24th, or the 25th. Mr. Letchley?
I can make the motion. The most opportune time for me is the Wednesday. Would that be the 24th?
The 24th.
I'd like to make a motion that it be April 24th.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Latchley, seconded by Ms. Morrison, that the school board interview up to two candidates on April 24th. Do we have any public comment? 5:30 p.m. Do we have any public comment on this? Do we have any board member comment? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
Motion passes. So the final situation, or final task, is for us to list 2 candidates that you would like to interview. In front of you, you have sheets with their names. Please check a box next to each name that you would like to interview, just so we're clear, and unless someone objects, this is how we'll handle it. If we do have a tie for second place, for the second slot in our interview process, we will simply take the 2 people who tied for that spot, and we will vote again, considering only those 2 candidates. Does anyone object to that process? Then that's what we'll do. Please check your 2 boxes and pass it forward.
Tell them, have them write there, print your name and sign it, and up at the top, fill in, vote, put 1, the number 1.
The reason she's asking this is these ballots have to be attached to the minutes of the meeting. Okay, I will read the votes in no particular order. Britt Latchley votes for Bart Thibodeau and Irma Trosclair. Tommy Angel votes for Bart Thibodeau and Irma Trosclair. Elroy Broussard votes for Bart Thibodeau and Irma Trosclair. Jeremy Hidalgo votes for Bart Thibodeau and Irma Trosclair. Mary Morrison votes for Bart Thibodeau and Irma Trosclair. Dawn Morris votes for Bart Thibodeau and Irma Trosclair. Timmy Chasson votes for Irma Trosclair. And Justin Santani votes for Bart Thibodeau and Irma Trosclair. I believe they are, well, I guess not technically tied. Ms. Trosclair got 9 votes and Mr. Thibodeau got 8 votes. So I will send a letter from the school board to the 2 candidates, inviting them to a special meeting on April 24th, and we will meet at 5:30 to ask questions. The last part of the agenda item, as just want to make a note for everyone at home, and in the audience. If you would like a particular topic or question asked of these candidates at the special board meeting, please send an email to me. My email address is on the website. It is on this agenda item. It is also jcentanni@lpssonline.com. I will compile any questions that I receive and distribute them to the board members so that they might be asked during this interview process. So with that handled, does anyone have any other business on this? Ms. Boudreau, do you have any further business for us on this item? Mr. Hidalgo?
Yes, sir. The original motion was to make sure that the public was included, and you've certainly done that by way of having them send their questions, but they're certainly welcome to come to this. This is going to be an open process.
Let me go ahead and clarify that. I sometimes take for granted that everyone understands how we operate. Every single meeting we have is in public. This meeting will also be in public. You'll be able to sit right where you're sitting right now and listen to the candidates answer questions. Before we take any votes, you will be invited to comment at the podium. So that meeting will be handled just as the meeting tonight, April 24th. Any other board member questions, comments? We're okay to move on, Ms. Boudreau?
It's going to be correct on the record, but just to clarify, I think you said the vote was 9 and 8. It's 8 and 7.
No, it's 8 and 7. It is 8 and 7. You're right. Mr. Knezik isn't here tonight. I forget. My mistake. Okay, so moving on, Ms. Thibodeau, we will go to the support worker awards and get these poor people home for dinner. Thank you for bearing with us.
Good afternoon, Dr. Aguilar, Mr. Santani, members of the board. Today I have the honor of recognizing the nominees for the 2018-2019 Outstanding School Support Employee Awards. Of all our nominees tonight, one overall winner will be awarded for each division, elementary, middle, and high. Although these employees do not directly instruct our students in the classroom, they can have a direct impact on our students' outlook, attitude, and morale. It is for this reason that for every year since 1990, the State Department of Education has held nominations for school support employees that go above and beyond the call of duty. Please join me in honoring the following nominees and award winners. Miss Ella Handy, Special Ed Paraeducator, Doosan Elementary.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I would like to make a special request on behalf of the school board and the president. We want to honor each and every one of these individuals tonight. Each one of them deserve the same amount of recognition. We'll ask that once we start to get further in the program that you not congregate and speak loudly outside of the doors. We want to honor everybody, so we would ask for that for that respect. Thank you.
Miss Sherelle Gaboro, Secretary, Early College Academy. Miss Borrow is also our high school award winner overall. Yeah. Nicole Guidry, PE Paraeducator, Austin Elementary. Ryan Martin, Custodian, Westside Elementary. Next for District 2. Going too fast. Okay, for District 2. Miss Sandy Colombe, Cafeteria Manager, Acadian Middle. Miss Colombe is also our overall middle school award winner. That's fine. Nancy Vallejo, ESL Paraeducator, Karen Crow Heights Elementary. Donna Como, Clerical Assistant, Karen Crow Middle. Nicole Verrett, Secretary, Evangeline Elementary. For District 3, Mr. Jerry Parker, Custodian, Alice Boucher Elementary. Miss Susan Kincaid, Clerical Assistant, Karen Crohat. Oh, he's coming? Oh. Okay. Just hold it. Now, Mr. Jerry Parker, Custodian at Alice Boucher Elementary. Miss Jolene Prejean, Clerical Assistant, J. Wallace James Elementary. Crescenda Broussard, Secretary, Live Oak Elementary. Minnie Simeon, RTI Paraeducator, Truman Early Childhood Education Center. For District 4, Mr. Nelson Zeno, Custodian, Paul Bro Middle. Christina Papillon, Secretary, J.W. Falk Elementary. Miss Verna Williams, Paraeducator, La Rosen Preparatory. Miss Norma Davis, Head Custodian, Northside High. Mary Lobby, Regular Ed Paraeducator, Edward J. Sam Accelerated. Catherine Anselmo, Clerical Assistant, David Thibodeau STEM Magnet Academy. Okay. Now for District 5. Thank you, sir. Denise Weber, Secretary, Acadiana High. Deborah Barra, Cafeteria Manager, Charles Burke Elementary.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the hallway, please, if you don't mind, please keep it down. Thank you.
Elizabeth Arnold, Clerical Assistant, Judice Middle. Nicole Foray, In-School Suspension Facilitator, LEO Judice Elementary. Karen Demet, Clerical Assistant, Prairie Elementary. Julia LeBlue, Special Ed Paraeducator, Ridge Elementary. Jennifer Robinson, Secretary, Scott Middle. For District 6, Ayanna Washington, ESL Paraeducator, Lafayette High. Tabitha Abear, Secretary, Lafayette Middle. Jamie Spears, Clerical Assistant, Edgar Martin Middle. Lystra Butler, Special Ed Paraeducator, S.J. Montgomery Elementary. William Hargroder, PE Paraeducator, Myrtle Place Elementary. For District 7, Thomas Carmouche, Head Custodian, Como High School. Teresa Stein, Head Custodian, Catherine Drexel Elementary. Sonia Francois, Computer Proctor, Corporal Michael Millbrook Elementary. Next for District 8, Carl King, Custodian, LJ Alamo Middle. Cindy Bowe, Special Ed Paraeducator, Broadmoor Elementary. Tiffany Word, In-School Suspension Facilitator, Milton Elementary Middle. Mitzi Broussard, Special Ed Paraeducator, Milton Elementary Middle. Carolyn Danton, Computer Proctor, Woodville Elementary. For District 9, Elizabeth Farnsworth, Secretary, Broussard Middle. Pam Gardner, Custodian, Ernest Gallette Elementary. Ms. Gardner is also our overall elementary award winner. Angela Sellen, Clerical Assistant, Green Tea Linden Elementary. Karen Romero, Secretary, Southside High. And last but not least, Ms. Meta Stoven, Clerical Assistant, Youngsville Middle. Congratulations to our nominees and award winners. There's cake and punch outside for anyone who would like it. Thank you.
Okay, whoever did that, brilliant. Grouping them by board member.
This is your opportunity to exit the meeting. We're going to lock the doors when they're done.
Can I get a chance to say a very short piece about Dr. Joe?
Okay. Mr. Craig, I'll be leaving. My granddaughter has a dance review, and I wanted you to know that when people say that you return phone calls and you return it with a smile and energy and excitement, and I will always remember, hey, Miss Morrison, what you got? What's going on? And you take care of it right away, and you're just always just so patient and just taking care of everything. I'm not sure who's going to take your place, but they're going to have some big shoes to fill. And thank you for everything. You're very special, and where you're going, they're very lucky to have you. They just don't know how much. So congratulations. Happy I had the opportunity to work with you. You're the best.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison.
I apologize. I was having trouble getting my computer to turn back on. And so I cannot actually see the agenda at the moment. Yeah, this is what you get for going. This is what you get for going paper. What you get for going paperless. Thank you very much, Mr. Hidalgo.
We're still waiting on Dr. Chasson.
Okay, well, that's fine. We can go. Is Mr. Stanley here? All right, we'll go to 2.3, the Tesh Vermilion Freshwater District presentation by Mr. D. Stanley. Please.
Mr. President, thanks. Just 1 minute. It's good to be before you again. And I'm here in my capacity representing the Tesh Vermilion Freshwater District, getting information out to all of the public bodies. Hello, Ms. Morrison. Good to see you again. Dr. Aguilar and Mr. Craig, before I forget, God bless you both. Thanks for your service, and wish you all the best in the months and the years ahead. We know there's plenty of good things to come from both of you, and thanks for your service to the system. One of the best-kept secrets is just north of here, and it flows through our parish, and that is the Tesh Vermilion Freshwater District. On May 4th, there will be a renewal. It happens once every 10 years of their sole funding source. It's a 1.5 mils property tax. It's been renewed by voters in Iberia, St. Martin, Vermilion, and Lafayette parishes, each of those 10-year blocks since 1970. Why is it important to Lafayette? Because it moves fresh water from the pumping station in Krotz Springs through the infrastructure, eventually ending up in the Bayou Teche and the Bayou Vermilion. For those of us who are old enough to remember and who have been around of what the Bayou Vermilion and the Teche used to look like back in the day, after the levees were constructed, after the flood of the 20s sealed off that freshwater flow, the Tesh Vermilion stepped in and has been providing that freshwater service ever since. It's not about drinking water, and it's not about flood control. It's about environment. It's about protecting the aquifer. It's about deflecting saltwater intrusion, and the Tesh Vermilion does all of those. What does it cost you? It's not going to cost you any more because you're paying it now, but if you have a $200,000 home with homestead exemption, it's about $1.50 a month. It costs you about what a bottle of water costs at the convenience store. So by information, early voting begins on April 20. The renewal comes up on May 4th for another 10 years, and we wanted to provide that information. I did leave some reading material for you. There will be a quiz at the next board meeting on April 24th. Thank you. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer on behalf of Donald Segrera, the Executive Director, and members of the Commission.
Are there any questions from the public or members of the board for Mr. Stanley? You also get an A on the quiz if you actually vote.
However you vote, please vote. Please vote May 4th or early vote beginning April 20. It's important that you cast your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Dr. Chasson, this is where we'll do 2.2, Love Our Schools.
weird being up here. All right. It is my esteemed honor and privilege to introduce two organizations that will speak about the Love Our Schools initiative that will be occurring on July 13th. As we all know, inspiration and encouragement for students, teachers, and staff at every school are necessities for ensuring a brighter future for our children. And with that in mind, the Lafayette Parish School System is incredibly fortunate to have two organizations, Love Acadiana and the William C. Schumacher Family Foundation, step forward to revitalize 8 schools within our parish. They have spearheaded this initiative and called upon other private and public organizations to do the same. I, for one, am incredibly and beyond grateful for the people within our community for seeing a need and arising to this occasion. I would now like to welcome and introduce Cindy Delana, the Executive Director of Love Acadiana, and Ryan DiMaggio, CEO and General Counsel of the William C. Schumacher Family Foundation, to please tell us more.
Hi, my name is Cindy Delana. I'm Executive Director of Love Acadiana, which is the community outreach ministry of Our Savior's Church. Our vision is to show God's love and create partnerships within churches, nonprofits, government, and business organizations to serve our Acadiana community. Our biggest event to date was a huge 8-day flood rebuilding event, headquartered at the Cajun Dome, followed by 2 years of flood relief in partnership with 8 Days of Hope, the City of Lafayette, Catholic Charities, United Methodist Committee in Relief, United Way, Graham Group, and many, many more, all valuing about $4 million of rebuilding work and including more than 5,000 volunteers, over 40,000 volunteer hours. This last 2 summers, thankfully with no flood, we've been serving our community by cleaning, painting, and landscaping schools in a one-day event known as Serve Day. We've painted 6 schools with over 2,000 volunteers in those 2 years. Schools such as Herod Elementary in Abbeville and Southwest Elementary in Opelousas and Paulboro Middle School in Lafayette. This year I'm more excited than ever that we are supersizing our event, and we have a brand new community partnership with William C. Schumacher Family Foundation, and I'd now like to introduce the CEO, Ryan DiMaggio.
Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you today. Smiling at Dr. Aguilar and Irma Trosclair. This is really humbling for me because I think we just decided in a coffee shop that we needed to do more for schools. And by that, I mean bring awareness to the need for the community to support our schools. I come from a family of educators. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, you name it. They were all educators, served on school boards in St. Landry Parish. And so I appreciate what education does for a community. It is my humble belief that the foundation of our community, the success of our community, the prosperity of our community, or the lack thereof, stems from education. And so when I talked to Dr. Kip Schumacher about an opportunity to do something for schools, and Cindy and I crossed paths, we had known a little bit through the Pew Foundation. Mr. Todd is here in the audience tonight, that there's a transformation zone. And I said, well, what is a transformation zone? What does that mean? I'm a product of public schools and I have no idea what that means. And come to find out, it's exactly what it means, is that we as a community needed to do more for our schools and for our children than we were doing as a state. And that's not a slight on anyone, it's just a fact. And so, as I've stated before, we are last, or near last, in the country in education, and it's okay to state that, but Love Our Schools is about finding a way for us to say that we're no longer going to accept that. And so, we've put some resources together, and on July 13th, with the help of literally 2,000 to 3,000 volunteers, we hope, we are going to ascend on 8 schools in the parish in the transformation zone, and they're listed on our website, which is loveourschoolsfoundation.com. When Cindy and I first met, she said, so what do you think the budget should be for this? And we threw out some numbers, and I multiplied those numbers. And since then, it's really amazing. In 2.5 months, we've raised almost $600,000. And our goal is about $1.5 million, which we think when we're done at these schools, the projects that we're going to, the revitalization projects that we're going to institute, the supplies that we're going to provide to schools and teachers and students, we really think will be in the value of millions of dollars. And, you know, that's great to give 6,000 students backpacks and supplies on the day that they show up to campus so that they're prepared and don't have to worry about whether I need a pen or a pencil or a piece of paper to write on something, or whether a teacher has supplies to buy a whiteboard. So we're already starting to buy things. We're looking at whiteboards at schools, we're looking at decks at schools, we're looking at landscaping and painting, and we're looking at basketball goals at the schools and all the things that the principals have said that they need. And we've walked around the schools already on 2 occasions. 8 Days of Hope is a great partner of ours. They came down when the flooding occurred in 2016. They are going to be partnering with us. They are sending down 24 of their site supervisors to be here on that day at their own cost, to partner with us and all the volunteers to do what we're going to do. And I will tell you that it is impossible for us to carry this out without the support of the school board and the administration and the teachers and the families. And so we would just encourage everyone, go to our website, sign up to volunteer. It's easy. You show up. We're going to have all the paint, all the supplies, all the organization that you need. If you have some money, I don't care if it's 50 cents or $500,000, donate it to these kids. We're going to put it to good use. And our hope is that next year this will be a standalone foundation, and it will support schools every summer and every year to come, so that eventually we will say we are not last in education, we are first in education. So that's our hope and desire. Timmy, thank you for letting us speak tonight, and to the administration, we appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take your questions.
Do you have any public questions for Mr. DiMaggio or Ms. Delina? Do you have any board member questions? Dr. Chasson?
If someone wants to donate, go to the website, or as well, someone wants to volunteer, what would be the proper process?
The website has everything you need. You log in, you go to the donate tab or the volunteer tab. The volunteer tab takes you to individual schools. You can actually choose what project you want to participate in. If you want to donate, it's going to go to the donate tab, and we're actually participating with the Community Foundation of Acadiana's Solar Giving Day this year as a matching grant initiative. So for every dollar you contribute, you're contributing $2 to this project, and so we encourage people to do that. Yep. Anything else?
No, I would just like to add really quickly that if anyone hasn't truly heard about what's going on, it is simply amazing. Like, kids at these schools, at J.W. Falk and Northside and Alice Boucher and Carricker Heights and Lafayette Middle, will be able to show up to school, and a book sack and school supplies will be provided to them. Now, initially I thought, wow, that's amazing. But then whenever they tossed the number out, I mean, I'm on the school board and didn't realize that it was that many. How many kids is it? About 5,000 kids just show up, ready to learn, and let us take care of the rest. And I can't say thank you enough to you guys. From the bottom of my heart, thank y'all. Todd, thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Thank you, Mr. DiMaggio. Thank you, Ms. Delina.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The next item, 3.1, Human Resources Personnel Changes for April 10th, 2019. Ms. Thibodeau, do you have any introductions?
We do have an introduction tonight. I'd like to introduce the new assistant principal at Woodvale Elementary School, Ms. Anne Marie Tauzand. Ms. Tauzand received a bachelor's degree from UL Lafayette with certifications in pre-K through 3rd grade and ESL, and a master's of educational leadership degree from LSU Shreveport. Ms. Tuzan taught for 4 years in Iberia and Vermilion Parish before entering Lafayette Parish. She taught 8 years at Curricular Heights Elementary School, and her most recent position was kindergarten teacher at Leo Judice for the past 4 years. Ms. Tuzan was a LAF Teacher Award recipient and Curricular Heights Elementary School Teacher of the Year. Congratulations. Ms. Tuzan, you can come here and...
I wanted to thank you all for believing in me. Nancy Check a few years ago told me before she retired, you need to be in administration. And I always had that on my heart. And so when I mentioned it to Mia Lemaire at Leo Judice, she said, go for it, you'd be great. And so that day, I looked up LSUS online. And it just so happened to start classes on my birthday. So I took that as my third sign, and I followed that dream. And raising 3 kids and going to grad school is not so much fun, but the reward paid off right away because I got the first job that I interviewed for. So thank you all to Lafayette Parish. I look forward to a wonderful career with all of you for a long time. Thank you.
Is that Miss Tozan or Tozan, as she was saying? Tozan.
I'm sorry, I said that right.
As someone whose name gets mispronounced frequently, I wanted to clarify. You can hardly go wrong listening to Mia Lemaire's advice, I'll promise you that. Thank you, Ms. Thibodeau. The next item is 3.2, list of bids approved to be advertised by the superintendent. Do we have any questions from the public or the board on the attached list of bids? Then we'll move on to the consent agenda. I will read each item in the consent agenda. Board members, please specify if you would like to have that item pulled for further consideration. Item 4.1, administration, revision of the 1920 school calendar. 4.2, 5th grade spot rezone, Falk to Barranco. 4.3, resolution 04-19-1955, increase in the 1920 MFP. 4.5, approval of quotes for Evangeline Elementary School playground equipment. 4.6, approval of quotes for Austin Elementary School playground equipment. 4.7, approval of quotes for Ridge Elementary School playground equipment. 4.8, rescind contract award for garbage and recycling collection and electronics waste disposal. 4.9, approval of bids for Drexel Elementary School roof replacement. 4.10, approval of bids for Lafayette High School roof replacement. 4.11, approval of guaranteed maximum price for Ridge Elementary classroom wing addition. 4.12, approval of quotes for Barranco Elementary electrical service replacement. 4.13, approval of HVAC maintenance contract change order for 1920. 4.14, release right of use St. Antoine property. 4.15, sales tax collection report for February 2019. 4.16, approved bid award science supplies bid number 62-19. 4.17, approved bid award sped equipment and supplies bid number 65-19. 4.18, resolution 04-19-1956, ratification of bond sale. 4.19, revision to resolution 11-07-1584, authorizing use of commercial credit card for teacher certificates. 4.20, 2018-2019 third quarter budget revisions for applicable funds. 4.21, 2019A construction fund budget, fiscal year 18-19. 4.22, approved bid award physical education equipment and supplies bid number 63-19. 4.23, grant fund summary, March 2019. 4.24, budget to actual reports, March 2019. 4.25, approved bid award, library supplies, bid number 66-19. 4.26, approved bid award, art, vocal, and world language supplies, bid number 68-19. 4.27, approval to advertise and accept proposals, Medicaid billing and electronic medical record services, RFP number. Do we have an RFP number there so I can read it into the record? Whoever this item is, Dr. Aguilar, Mr. Craig, Mr. Guidry, Mr. Francis.
It's just in draft form at this point.
Oh, so what are we approving, the draft?
Yes.
Oh.
And then we'll number it thereafter.
Okay. Approval to advertise and accept proposals, Medicaid billing and electronic medical record services draft RFP. Number 28, approval to piggyback Wood Library shelving. Number 29, approved bid award dish machine bid number 71-19. Number 30, approved bid award child nutrition supplies bid number 61-19. Number 31, revision of bond and pay-as-you-go project listing. Number 32, resolution 04-19-1957, sales and use tax collection and administration. Okay. Number 33, revisions to policy GBD, employment of personnel. Number 34, policy DFAB, industrial tax exemptions. Number 35, revisions to policy GBK, employee discipline. Number 36, revision to policy JR, student privacy and education records. Number 37, revisions to policy GBN, separation of employment. Number 38, approve proposal, recommendation, printing and binding of curricular materials, RFP number 55-19. Number 39, RFQ for high school photography services.
Pull that, please.
Number 40, rejection of all proposals, voice over internet protocol phone service, RFP number 56-19. Number 41, approval of quotes for Leo Judice elementary exterior painting. And number 42, approval of professional services agreement with Frontline Education.
Can you pull that one?
And the approval of minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve all items not pulled.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Hidalgo, seconded by Mr. Angel, to approve all items not pulled. For the record, the items pulled are 32, 39, and 42. Those items will be discussed separately. If you would like to make a comment, members of the public, on any of the other items on our agenda, 1 through 44, except for those three, now is your opportunity. Are there any board member comments on the items not pulled? I would like to ask Ms. Trosclair to give the explanation she gave to me when I asked this particular question 2 weeks ago. Would you please explain the rationale of having a one-day, the children come back from Mardi Gras for 1 day in February with the change to the calendar? It was a good answer, and so I want you to tell it to the public.
We wanted to try to tie for parents' convenience with daycare. We wanted to try to tie as many of those days for PD to already existing holidays. We felt that was more convenient. They would quite possibly already have daycare set up during the break for our working parents. So we thought that tying 2 of those days, I think we tied one as well right after Thanksgiving break, and that was our thinking on that.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other board member comments? Please, Mr. Angel.
I have a question, I guess, on the current calendar. As I walk in the morning, I see the sign for Curricular Middle School. Spring break is when, like the last week in April or something?
It's actually next week.
Next week?
And historically, this district has had the kids be off Good Friday and the week after Easter. When we brought this calendar to the board, because of the testing schedule, we did the flip this year. It happens maybe every 4 or 5 years where we put the Easter vacation is the same week as Good Friday, and we come back the day after Easter. It's a bit of a flip this year, and depending on how the testing calendar, state testing calendar falls, we do that adjustment.
Do we test when they come back or before they leave?
Yeah, some testing has been going on for the last couple of weeks and is wrapping up, and when we come back from the holiday, we'll be testing, and that's expanding to the middle schools and in the high schools as we get into late April and early May.
And when does school end?
May, the last day for the kids is May 28th, no, I'm sorry. 23rd? Yeah. Yeah.
So they have about 3 weeks after the Easter break or the spring
yes,
break?
Yes, sir. We're down to what, 5 weeks, Dr. Aguilar? I'm not keeping track anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Joe Craig said the end of school's 2 days from now. Thank you, Mr. Craig. Are there any other board member comments on this item? Mr. Broussard?
Not on that item, but
okay.
Yeah, I'll wait.
Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Before we do that, Mr. President, have someone in the audience. We didn't pull the item, and I'm looking forward on the agenda to ask question about the sale of the sheriff building.
I believe we're not selling it. We are relinquishing
But just-
our
just-
right of use to
yeah.
a portion of it.
Just a bit of information.
Go right ahead.
If we can explain to some of the gentlemen in the audience what we are doing on what has been done with our separation from the St. Antoine, the sheriff office building.
I'm going to let Mr. Guidry fill in the blanks, but I believe we sold it 4 years ago, and we retained use of the kitchen area for food preparation for our school cafeterias, and now we are relinquishing that portion of our rights to the building?
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct. That's
Yes.
the whole story.
Mhm.
I didn't miss anything. All right. So that's it. We retained the mineral rights, I know for sure. We were retaining the mineral rights for the property and all that good stuff, but we're no longer going to have the right to use the kitchen to prepare meals for our schools.
So, Mr. Guidry, the sale is final. We no longer have anything to do with it. All right. Yeah, I mean, with kitchen use. We're done. All right.
Seven for, none against.
Okay, well, the first item that was pulled, number 39, Resolution 04-9, oh, I'm sorry, 32. I'm reading the right one, but it's 32, not 39. Resolution 04-19-1957, Sales and Use Tax Collection and Administration. Ms. Morris.
I'd like to make a motion that the board adopt a resolution in support of a centralized sales tax collection.
A motion from Ms. Morris, second by Mr. Angel, that the board adopt a resolution in support of centralized sales tax collection. Do we have any public comment on this item? Do we have any board member comment? I'm going to read into the record the resolution in support of centralized sales and use tax collection and administration. Resolution 04-19-1957, whereas the state of Louisiana is one of only 2 states in the country without a centralized sales tax collection, whereas in January 2017, the Louisiana Legislature's Blue Ribbon Task Force on Structural Changes in Budget and Tax Policy recommended the creation of a uniform system of tax administration, collection, and audit, a recommendation echoed by economists and good government groups within the state. Whereas the lack of centralized collection imposes an administrative burden on businesses that discourages their investment and expansion in Louisiana, including Lafayette Parish, thus depriving our economy of growth and the resulting revenue enhancement for governmental functions, including public education. Whereas the lack of centralized collection compromises local agencies' ability to collect the full amount of their sales tax on internet sales, depriving them of much-needed revenue. Whereas the Lafayette Parish school system serves as a tax collector, spending over $2 million annually to collect taxes locally, and whereas these resources could be better invested in educating our students, compensating our teachers, and improving our facilities, therefore be it resolved that the Lafayette Parish School Board expresses support for House Bill 57, a constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to provide by law for the centralized collection of all sales and use taxes levied by any taxing authority in the state. Finally, be it resolved that a copy of this resolution be provided to each member of the legislative delegation of Lafayette Parish and the governor of the state of Louisiana. So after reading that, I'll open the floor back up for public comments on this item or board member comments. Yes, sir, Mr. Angel.
I have a question. Who will bear the cost of this?
Well, we don't know yet, but I would imagine it would operate much the same as we operate now. So we effectively manage the sales tax office in this parish, and we share the costs of collecting sales taxes with the other taxing authorities in the parish. based on a prorated share of what we collect, right? So
So-
we pay the most because we collect, I think, pretty close to 40 or 45% of the sales taxes in the parish.
So should the amendment ultimately pass and the voters, et cetera, we would still collect and the sales taxes like we do now?
No. So if the amendment to the Constitution were passed by the voters, then what would essentially happen is the legislature would come up with a method of collecting sales taxes at the state level for everyone in the state, and then distribute those sales taxes to us in the city of Youngsville, the city of Carencro, city of Lafayette. Anyone who has a sales tax levied in this parish will receive a check, just like they do now, where they receive a check from us, they receive a check from the state. I think the idea being that twofold, you can have an efficiency in personnel because you can have more people working, doing the same thing across parish lines. Right now you have 64 tax collection offices. There would be one. So you would have some efficiency in personnel. And the other idea being that you would now have a centralized collection point for internet vendors to send their tax revenue. The estimate I heard is, and there are several, but they're all right around $200 million in state sales tax that is not collected on internet sales. And so that's the 5 cents or the 4.45 cents, whatever it is. Now, we collect 4 cents parish-wide, right? 2 for us, 1 for the sheriff and the unincorporated. Everybody has, Youngsville, Broussard, everybody has their sales tax rate. If you extrapolate that out, because if you look at state sales tax collections, Lafayette Parish pays about 10% of the state sales tax collections. And so if it's 200 million statewide, then you can just about say that it's 15 or 16 million that we're not getting. And then you can say, okay, well then divide that by, or multiply that by 40%, that's what the school system's not getting, before we even take into account any savings in personnel. So I think this has a lot of potential. I think this is good policy. That's the answer to the cost question. Thank you. You're welcome. Are there any other questions? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Seven for and none against.
Motion passes. The next item is number 39, RFQ for high school for photography services. Mr. Hidalgo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that the board authorize a quote process to provide photography services for LPSS graduation, and that the process shall include quotes and examples of work and liability insurance.
All right, 1 second, please. We have a motion for Mr. Hidalgo, seconded by Mr. Angel, that
the board
authorize a quote, I wrote down quote process, I was trying to remember the first part. That the board authorize a quote process for LPSS graduation, and that the quote process shall include
quotes and examples of work.
Quotes and examples of work. And liability insurance.
Right, and also, Mr. President, just to clarify, the quote process to provide photography services for LPSS graduation.
Is that what I said?
You missed the photography part.
Oh, okay. Photography services, please include that, Madam Secretary. Do we have any public comment on this item? Do we have any board member comment?
Yes.
I figured we did.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of things briefly. First, this board has done, I think, a pretty exceptional job at making sure that one of our duties is to make sure that we protect taxpayer dollars and that we protect the students of the parish in many ways. And I think we've done an exceptional job on fair processes, whether it's bidding or, the whole 9 yards of what we do. And I just want to ask us to continue that process. The reason this is coming up, I've received several calls, a few, there's 3, about the interest from local photographers who do good work. We've got several local photographers who do great work, and some of them actually do work in our schools. We have many many photographers that do different types of, whether or not it's just pictures for the yearbook or class pictures or sports-related stuff. And they've shared great interest in having an opportunity to get involved with the graduation photography services. So that's why I'm bringing this item up, and I'm just asking for a fair process. I would like that that a quote go out, and that, we get reputable local folks here who are interested in bidding on these services. And Mr. President, if it's okay, it's not in the motion, but I'd like to suggest that the superintendent have the authority to pick 3 people to review those quotes, and if, whether you are included or not, that you have the autonomy and the authority as our president to, execute that decision. I know that we have graduations in May, so we've got time to do this. So I just ask my fellow board members that we, as we've done in the past on many other occasions, that we give these local folks an opportunity to have a fair bid process and provide the best service and price to our parents and students.
Thank you, Mr. Hidalgo. Do we have any other comment? Mr. Broussard?
The process now, are they required to have insurance now? Anyone?
I'm not sure if you're asking me, Mr. Broussard.
No, I'm asking Mr. Craig or someone. Are they required to be insured now?
Yeah, they would be expected to have liability service or liability insurance for their business that would be available. Typically, some of these picture events are taken at the school, sometimes at off-site, an athletic field, the Cajun Dome, but they'd have to have liability insurance to do business with us.
The process now is the principals choose the photographer for graduation, principal only. We don't have a say-so on who the photographer is for graduation, do we?
So ultimately, the principal approves it, but it's typically those graduation committees over the years. As a former principal, you get photographers come in and they try to get their foot in the door, but once a photographer kind of gets started with an organization or a school or an event, when that organization, in this case the graduation committee, if they're happy with the service, they just tend to, out of habit, go back to that individual. We typically don't, those organizations, the school doesn't pay for the service. The vendor makes their profit off of taking a good picture, and kids that had their picture taken choose to purchase it. But the district itself doesn't pay for the service.
One last question. Will the principals have any say-so in that selection process? Now, in your proposal?
No, I'm asking that the central office make the choice. And just for the record, I know that there's there's at least one principal who doesn't even know who the current photographer is, doesn't even know that the current photographer is the photographer. So to suggest that, they have a say-so every year, somebody behind the scenes is doing it, and I'm asking for us to take the lead on what our job is and making sure that we're having fair processes. We've been discussing fair processes for 4 years now, and this is a fair process, bidding process.
1 second, Dr. Aguilar. Mr. Lachele?
So you wouldn't label this as micromanaging then? We have school-based management, and it's the children and the parents that pay for these services. But you say we have plenty of time. Okay, our parents and our students have already been disrupted with graduation once, thanks to the Cajun Dome, of moving the dates. They had to move venues for parties and invitations, the whole 9 yards. Now you want to go through this process a month away from graduation, when you have graduation on the 9th and the 10th, and disrupt the whole situation. And I've gotten calls today wanting to know why and why now. And we know the real story behind this, me and you. Okay? You're taking this to a personal level is what you're doing. Okay? But now is not the time to do this and disrupt These children are graduating, these students are graduating in less than a month. And you want to throw these committees and these schools into turmoil and bring in photographers who have maybe never done a graduation ceremony. These students are going to get one chance to graduate, one chance for these pictures and these memories. You want to do this for next school year. Don't disrupt what is taking place on May 9th and 10th. And that's my argument. But if we're going to go to RFPs and RFQs, then we need to do it on everything. Everything. Just like we're going to bring another one up here real soon. But we need to do it on everything, and you can't just limit photography just specifically graduation. Then you're going to have to do it on T-shirts, you're going to have to do it on koozies, and you're going to have to do it on everything. And all you're doing is making government bigger and bigger and bigger, and putting the board where the board doesn't need to be with these committees. We don't pay a penny for this service. It's the parents and the committees and the students and everyone who works hard to put these events on. And now we're going to micromanage these people. And I just don't think it's right. Or at least for May 9th and 10th. We could disrupt what's going to... These kids get one chance. What if these pictures are messed up or someone goes into this venue and has never done this before? That's half of my argument.
Thank you, Mr. Latchley. Dr. Aguilar?
So I just wanted the motion to read something like what was mentioned by Mr. Hidalgo, that the board president and the superintendent would identify the winning bid as opposed to waiting until May 8th for the next board meeting. So there might need to be some clarification in the motion.
I concur, and I was going to get to that. So let me ask you a question. Is your intention to have Dr. Aguilar and I select the winning bid from whoever submits proposals?
Sure.
Okay. May I suggest, and somebody is actually calling me right now. Mary Morrison must not realize that we're still in a meeting. How is it going to be your idea that each school would be able to get their own, or this is going to be one person who does it for everybody?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Pretty similar to the way it is now, Mr. President. Just, again, it's the bidding process. And the reason that I'm asking that the superintendent and yourself get to award the winning bid is to prevent from what Mr. Latchley's concern is. We don't want to wait until 2 or 3 or 4 days before graduation to make the decision. However, the pictures are taken on graduation day and graduation day only. So I don't see an issue here.
Okay.
Photographer shows up, takes a picture. Folks don't get the picture till after. As long as someone who is not going to be able to, who is not available on graduation day is not going to bid on this, right? So I think there's plenty of time, and if we go through this process, it's out of my hands. It's, I'll be happy to be part of the process, but I'm not asking to.
Okay. Would you amend your motion to state as such?
Sure, and that the superintendent and board president identify the winning bid.
Award. It may need to say the actual
award. The winning bid.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Angel, you were the second on this. We'll need to take care of that first.
I have a question first. Okay. I think that Mr. Latchley brings up a legitimate concern. When we, as I recall bidding years ago, don't you have to have, like, somebody help me over here, don't you have to have, like, you have to advertise 3 times in the paper, in your journal, and then you can't do it in 3 consecutive days. You have to do it like one day and then 4 or 5 days later, and then does anyone know that? Maybe Danielle can help me on that.
That's only when you have to bid.
This would be a quote process, so you have more, flexibility built in. It's basically whatever our quote process is set up administratively. And so from an advertisement standpoint, we typically, at a minimum, advertise 3 weeks, at times 2 weeks, because to advertise 1 week, it really doesn't get the information out. So you're talking about 2 to 3 week period for advertising, and then beyond that, assembling the quotes and then and then evaluating it and awarding it to the low quote.
And by what method do we advertise?
Our official, the paper that we publish our minutes in, the official journal, we advertise there.
But you don't do it like a normal bid, then, you're saying?
Well, instead of it
thinking, I don't
saying,
think, if you do it like a normal bid, I think Mr. Latchley is right. I don't think you can do it.
instead of saying bid, it will say quote. So the time frame's a little different. You can shorten it some because it's quotes. Bids are specified. It's more specific in the law. The quotes are pretty much at this level. The cost is not to the system. So we're not even required to get quotes. One could say, but a good business practice would support doing so in the interest of the families who are purchasing these pictures. So point being, a little bit more flexibility. We can shorten it a little bit so that it gives us a little bit more time to make that decision and still leave some time to get the legwork done to get the successful response involved and engaged and so that they can schedule.
Absolutely, please continue.
So, Mr. Craig, I'd like to ask you as a former principal, does the time, do you think that it's too quick, or do you think, we have plenty of time?
When you made the adjustment to make that the decision between the superintendent and the board president, and I think that helped. When I saw the initial verbiage, I was like, they're going to pick that person on May 8th, and 24 hours later we're doing David Thibodeau and Northside. That, especially if it's a new vendor or a smaller vendor, I think they need time to make some organizational decisions. But I think if there's some flexibility in terms of that decision being made, I think there'll be time.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, Mr. Angel, I'm waiting to hear if you are still going to second with the addition.
I'm sorry.
You were the second on the original motion. Mr. Hidalgo added the part about the superintendent and the board president. I'm asking if you continue to second. All right, Mr. Angel seconds that motion. Mr. Latchley?
So if you bring this before the board and you want the board to make the decision and be in the process, but yet the superintendent and the president will only make the decision on what vendor is used, you're excluding the rest of the board.
I appreciate you addressing me directly, even though you shouldn't, but I'll answer you directly if the president will allow me. As Mr. Guidry clearly stated, this doesn't even require this process. I'm going to use the word transparency as I have many times in the past. I'm asking for that high level of transparency to go through the process, even though it's not required. So the caveat is to allow the superintendent and the board president to sign off and approve the final decision based on the information at hand. I could have asked that the superintendent just kind of do this and make other recommendations. That to me would have been less transparent. So I'm not excluding the board. A bid is a bid, a quote is a quote. The process, to me, is pretty simple, and I apologize if maybe it's not, but to me it's pretty simple.
Do you have any other comments? Mr. Broussard.
My concern is similar to Mr. Latchley's. Whether it's a quote or a bid, we are in the 11th hour with that. And that's my concern, not picking the right person, because that's a momentous occasion. And to have someone to select their best work and submit that might be the best work they've ever done. Did not do quality work before that, and will not do quality work after that. So that's my only concern. That we in the 11th hour with that. I would be more supportive if had we done this months ago, or put that in place for the next year. But being at the 11th hour is very difficult to digest.
Last chance, Mr. Hidalgo.
Oh, no chance. I just want to thank you guys for your consideration. That's precisely why I'd like them to present examples of their work. We have over a half a dozen that I'm aware of, photographers within the schools that I represent, different photographers, different people who do exceptional work. It would be real difficult if we were just rating it on the examples of work. So we have capable people in this community. This is not the 11th hour at all. And finally, I bring these things up as they come to my attention. So sometimes we bring stuff up that we've got 6 months to deal with, and sometimes we don't. This is not a pressing issue. It was a simple recommendation for a fair quoting process. I'd appreciate y'all's support.
Thank you, Mr. Hidalgo. Do we have any other questions or comments? Madam Secretary, I will call for the vote.
Let's hope we don't mess up no kids' graduation.
For, 2 against, 1 abstain.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, item number 42, approval of professional services agreement with Frontline Education. Dr. Shessel?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to defer until we can get more information about this item.
A motion from Dr. Shessel, second by Ms. Morris, that we defer until we can get more information about the approval of professional services agreement with Frontline Education. Do we have any public comment on the motion? Do we have any? Well, Ms. Morris seconded it. Yeah. Now, do we have any board member comment on this item? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. Yeah? Or do you want more information right now?
No, just a couple of requests. We're
Oh,
deferring
sure.
it for additional information, so this may give opportunities to collect the information before it comes up again.
This is what I meant when I asked, did we have board member comment?
Yeah, well, it took me a moment.
Okay, all right, go ahead, please.
It took me a moment. One, Ms. Thibodeau or Mr. Mead, I assume there are other companies that provide us the same or similar service out there, so it would be beneficial for us when it comes back before us to know about these other companies and how they are similar or different in the services that Frontline provides. And also any information on what other districts use this particular company and what their experience is. All right.
Okay.
Ms. Thibodeau, do you have all the information you need from Ms. Morris?
I do, and I mean, if you want me to respond to her now, I can. I
No,
don't
the
know if
motion
it's
is,
appropriate.
no, the motion is to defer, and we'll
Okay.
handle it.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
you.
Are there any other comments from board members on this item, on this motion? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Seven for, none against.
That being the final item on the agenda, we will adjourn this meeting and take a I apologize. I told the board members they had to wait until the end of the meeting to thank Mr. Craig, so please go right.
Is this not a roast of Mr. Craig?
Start with Dr. Chassel and go around the table if anybody has anything to say to thank Mr. Craig for his years of service.
Mr. Craig. All right. He said roast. I'm not going to roast you. Oh, gosh, Mr. Craig. I should have calculated this ahead of time. Gosh, let's say, oh, my God, 30? years ago. I was blessed to be accepted into the and earn my way into the gifted program, and sometime thereafter, after going to Myrtle Place and then Paul Bro Middle School, I was blessed to have you as my teacher. I want to share something with everyone here, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Mr. Craig taught in a way, and you had to have been in his class to understand, the way Mr. Craig taught, he taught with a level of inspiration. It was as if, as he was teaching the material, he was so excited about it because he knew it was things that matter in the world and could either save your life one day or make a difference in the world overall, that he taught in such a manner that it was as if he was learning the material for himself all over again. All over again. I just want to tell you that I appreciate you, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I majored in microbiology. I thoroughly enjoy what I do, and it has a lot to do with the way you taught us. You cared about us. The coolest projects. It was always an event being in class, and I just loved it. Justin Santani made mention, or someone made mention, turning off your cell phone, but please don't turn off your cell phone. So I still have things I need to ask you. We're gonna bother you. We may have to hire you out on a temporary basis. But I just really quickly, I'll tell you how special Mr. Craig is to me, and it's the most random story. And I think he as soon as I start telling the story, he'll know what I'm saying. I don't remember when it was. Maybe about a year ago. I came into the central office on a late Friday afternoon, and I was just looking for Mr. Craig. That's the only person I needed. He's the only person that could help me. And I went and I got him, and I walked him over all the way to these windows right here. And I said, Mr. Craig, my daughter's in science class, and they can bring the coolest items if they can, and they can get bonus points. And there was a really big spider outside this window about 3 days ago, and it's not here anymore. It was the biggest spider I'd ever seen in my life, and I was positive it would still be there, and when I came back, it wasn't. Mr. Craig knew exactly what I was talking about. He knew the spider, banana spider. He knew exactly the I can't even think right now, the species and everything. He knew what it was, and then to top that off, Mr. Craig said, don't worry about it. There's some really big spiders just like that where I live or where I go walking or bike riding, the hunting camp. I'll get you one. Now, how awesome is that, y'all? That my science teacher was taking care of the science student who was helping me take care of my own student. And literally, days later, Mr. Craig presented me with the biggest spider, had made sure that it was dead. He literally put just enough oxygen to safely do away with the spider and presented that spider to me. And when I gave it to my daughter said, where did you get that from? My only response was, Mr. Craig. So thank you, Mr. Craig. I love you, man.
Ms. Morris?
Well, Mr. Craig, as I told you earlier, I'm not all warm and fuzzy in a public forum. I was going to say that we can all tell stories of things that you've done for us, but you have never brought me a spider, ever. But thank you for everything you've done. We're really going to miss you.
Mr. Hidalgo.
Mr. Craig, probably the most important thing I can tell you, sir, is thank you. Shoot, I done lost everything, but it's going to come back.
That was a good
You know,
start.
I got to tell you, yeah, well, I'm not done yet, Mr. President. It's unbelievable how you handle your job. Unbelievable. I got to tell you that it's not, in fact, I'm not going to say it's not often. I don't believe I've ever heard of a person that I know personally who is liked by everyone that I know knows them. You know, we all have folks that don't like us, folks that... You are liked by everyone that knows you, and that's because you work hard. It's unbelievable. You did it to yourself, but I got to tell you that I called you. If I had a question, it didn't matter if it was about a bus. It didn't matter what it was about. Call Mr. Craig. Call Mr. Craig. And it wasn't your job to answer probably half of those phone calls, but you handled them. yourself personally. So I want to thank you. Unfortunately, to say this, I'm having a hard time wishing you well. I don't want you to leave, but I know that you've done your service to this system, students, the parents, and certainly this school board. You are a true leader and an awesome person. So thank you.
What you may or may not know about me personally is that I stay up very, very late at night. I very rarely do I go to sleep before 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes later than that. And Joe Craig had the unfortunate experience of me finding out that he gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I would send him texts and emails or call him because I knew he got to his desk at 4:30. And I would say, you know what, bet you nobody's calling Joe right now. Bet you I get right through. And sure enough, Joe was at his desk ready to tackle the day and iron out transportation, iron out whatever the issue happened to be. And Dr. Aguilar kind of summed it up. You said he was the glue that held the system together. I always said the wheels would fall off the wagon if Joe weren't here. And I'm hoping they don't. I'm hoping I was wrong about that. Pretty sure I was right, though. Thank you for everything, Joe.
Mr. Craig, I think I said it earlier, and I'll say it again for those who maybe didn't hear. I'm not a person of few words. I've never met a microphone I didn't like, and I'll always take the opportunity to talk. But even while my fellow board members were expressing their thoughts, I'm sitting there trying to think of what to say. And thank you. That's because I guess there'd be too much. I could go on for hours and hours, but it's kind of like my mind went blank. We go back over 20-something years, when you were at Acadiana, and I think I told you in an email when you announced your retirement that, I was going to wish you well and tell you once a Ram, always a Ram, because you were a Ram and you will always be a Ram, and we were privileged to have you at Acadiana, and that's where I first met you. And pure privilege that I got to work with you. I knew you as a friend, I knew you as an administrator, but it's been a pleasure working with you, and I think we'll all agree at 4:30 p.m. on Friday, we never sent Joe Craig a question he couldn't answer. Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Angel?
First of all, Mr. Latchley, you can't have all of him. You have to share him. Okay. He lived in Carencro and worked in Carencro Middle. Don't forget that. I wish for you, Joe, the very best, and thanks for everything you've done.
Mr. Craig, I don't know it's to be happy because you're moving on to another career that you pursued at your younger age, or to be angry because you're leaving us in dire need of your leadership. Like they said, have never asked a question that you could not answer immediately or get an answer for it. We depended on your leadership for so long until you're leaving us helpless. And thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your friendship. And I say that there's a saying that everyone is dispensable. Everyone can be replaced, but you have molded into something different. I am going to miss you. This administration is going to miss you, but I do wish you the best of luck, and thank you for your years of services to me, and for this board. Thank you.
All right. You can go ahead and lose the flushing in your face from all the embarrassment now. All right. Ms. Morris has one last comment, and then we're going to take a small. Ms. Morris, that's her name.
Yeah, not for about Mr. Craig, but about the Love Your Schools Foundation. It occurred to me that some of the projects that the Love Your Schools Foundation will be taking care of on, July 13th, maybe those types of capital improvements that might fall under the matching funds policy that we have. But I do think that there's a requirement under the policy for some pre-approval by the board, so I would just suggest that if there's a list of those projects that might fit that criteria, to watch what that pre-approval deadline is, to make sure you get it to us before that July 13th, so that we can take advantage of those matching for those. I don't anticipate there'd be anything large, but anything that would meet that criteria of a capital improvement at those schools might qualify for those matching funds.
Thank you, Ms. Morris, for coming further and further to my side on the matching fund project every day. I will never miss an opportunity from now until the end of my life. So with that said, I'll adjourn this meeting. We'll take a 15-minute break and then come back for the budget meeting.